Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to the Buyer's Guide to Carbon Credit Data Quality. My name is Bonnie Lay, and I am the principal for the Carbon Markets Initiative here at RMI, and I'm going to be your moderator for the webinar today. This is co-hosted by RMI and the Climate Collective. So a couple of logistical points first. This webinar is being recorded and will be posted on the RMI event page within 24 hours. During the first 30 minutes of this webinar, we will be presenting and going over the buyer's guide. During this time, you could drop any questions you have into the Q&A box you see at the bottom of your Zoom screen. Then during the final 30 minutes, we will get to as many of these questions as we can during a live Q&A session. So be sure to get all of your questions submitted throughout. We're excited to work on answering them for you. Without further ado, let's dive into the guide. Last August, RMI and Climate Collective worked together to publish a landscape guide to the voluntary carbon market, or the VCM. We identified that transparent data is crucial for a trusted, functioning VCM. But with a data landscape that is so fragmented, complicated, and opaque, how can a buyer source and analyze the right data so that they could actually make a purchase aligned with their sustainability goals? So this is why we created this buyer's guide that was published last week. We wanted to break down into actionable steps how to do this. And I'm going to turn it over now to Caitlin Smith, manager of the RMI Carbon Markets Initiative, to walk us through this guide. Caitlin, over to you.
Great. Thank you, Bonnie, and welcome, everyone. Great to see such enthusiasm for our buyer's guide this morning. As Bonnie mentioned, this is kind of a follow-on to the landscape guide we presented last year. And so most of my presentation is going to focus on the steps. So what does it actually take for a buyer to kind of find the good data that they're looking for, find high quality carbon crediting data, and then high quality credits. So we'll do that for the first 25 minutes, and the end of the presentation, we'll do a panel Q&A with the RMI team and then Anna Lerner from Climate Collective. Next slide. So as Bonnie mentioned, as we've kind of mentioned, we really wanted to provide actionable steps for buyers who are trying to navigate the market. And I should note that buyers are kind of everybody's dream, right? Everybody's trying to understand how to find good buyers for carbon credits. And so this is also relevant information and kind of actionable steps for anybody who is engaging with buyers or interacting with the demand side of the market. Next slide. And so I think it's helpful just to step back and kind of think about when anybody is buying in a market, what are the motivators and how do you manage kind of the risks and the uncertainty and the information that you need to make a good decision. And across the board, generally at a very high level, there's an inverse relationship between risk and data quality in markets. And what that means is the less information you have about a big purchase, the higher the risk seems to go with that purchase. Really sophisticated markets, housing markets, car markets, the stock market have kind of established processes for drilling into the data that is behind the products, to reducing the uncertainty, and then either reducing the risk or pricing the risk in the market. And then the voluntary carbon market, for reasons that are in the landscape guide, is kind of on a journey to getting to that point, but it's not yet at the point where it is really sophisticated and untangling this relationship between risk and data quality. And this was something that in our research, as we talk to buyers, as we talk to anybody who's interacting with buyers, this came up over and over and over again as a core motivator for how carbon credit buyers are navigating the market, what they're asking for from project developers, and what they're looking for in terms of services provided within the market. And so we really tried to frame this. To us, it became very clear that there's this really, really strong relationship in the market between data quality for carbon credits. And what we mean by that is the information that allows people to understand whether the credits are performing as they're supposed to perform, So that is data quality. There's really strong relationship between data quality and risk management for buyers. And so that's just a helpful framing. Across the board, what this means is buyers are worried about quite a few risks. But the kind of 4 big ones are climate performance risk, meaning this is really the concern of like, are the credits that they're buying going to deliver the climate impact that buyers are expecting? There are also risks about whether the project developers can deliver what they've promised, whether the projects will be implemented with the right MRV and operational processes, and then whether the price that is paid really reflects the true value of the market. And all of these risks are again tied to the data issues in the VCM. And so what do we mean by the data issues in the VCM? As I think probably many of you know, carbon credits are just really complicated to some degree, right? You're taking something that's pretty abstract and intangible, and trying to turn it into a tangible commodity. And that means that there is an inherent amount of measurement uncertainty in terms of the impact on the ground on either the emissions or the communities nearby or the kind of co-benefits that projects affect. In some cases, because of that measurement uncertainty, buyers have, or kind of the market tries to rely on proxy metrics to assess climate impact. And that kind of creates additional uncertainty. We also know that the VCM can have some really complicated processes, and that just makes it hard to really hard or expensive or time consuming to really understand what information, how credits are performing and to what degree. And then across the board, as Bonnie mentioned, we really believe in transparency for carbon crediting data. But right now, a lot of information on carbon credits is either opaque or very hard to access. And so this guide is really focused on how to help buyers in a very tangible way overcome these 4 issues. Next slide, please. So we say tangible steps to overcome these 4 issues. And so what do we mean by that? So this buyer's guide lays out 3 steps that we think buyers can use to find really high quality data and then thus high quality credits. So the very first step is to build a data package for the projects that you're considering. And we'll talk about this in great detail later, but really what this means is that you're kind of gathering information that pertains to how the credits are performing and whether they're achieving their stated climate impact. The next step is we lay out 3 testing tools to assess whether the information in that data package is of high quality. And when we define high quality to mean that the data is credible, meaning that it accurately reflects what it's supposed to. That data is efficient, meaning it flows quickly through the market, and that data is trustworthy, meaning that it's like independently managed and governed, and it's free of kind of biases and manipulation. And then the final step is reflection that over time, projects are a long-term investment, and over time, the voluntary carbon market will continually update and improve its ability to source high quality data and bring that data to the market. And projects will continually be reporting on how they are actually performing. And so as time unfolds, it's important that buyers continually refresh and monitor how their projects are performing. So most of this presentation, we're going to walk through what each of these steps mean in detail and how to actually execute on them. Next slide, please. So a lot all at once. We've said this is actionable and designed to kind of give tangible steps. What does this actually mean? Next slide, Emily, Sarah. We are very aware that buying carbon credits is a very long journey, and it requires kind of a range of decision points for buyers. And this guide is really focused on, and so we kind of, at a high level, we recognize that that journey really has kind of 6 stages to it. The first two are really things that kind of are really internal decisions, either within an organization or within a team, to understand what is the point of buying credits, like how does it fit into an overall decarbonization strategy, and then to kind of do some high level discerning around the types of credits. This maybe gets into like location and nature versus not nature, things like that. And then this guide is really focused on the investigate stage, and the investigate stage drives into whether are the projects in consideration of a high enough quality to meet the buyer's standards. And we dive specifically into this stage because we are aware that there's a lot of guidance in the market for buyers. We lay out in the guide itself kind of some specifics of what that looks like. But very few guides really help buyers through this stage in a tangible way. And so we're trying to kind of fill a void in the existing guidance. Next slide, please. All right, so back to the carbon credit data package. This is something that we're calling it a carbon credit data package to out of a recognition that carbon crediting data is really, really complicated. It can be really granular. There is a lot of it. It lives in a lot of different places. And so we wanted to kind of create a framework to help make a complicated landscape, a fractured landscape, more tangible and more navigable. And as I meant, next slide. As I mentioned, the kind of carbon crediting data package is a way to collect all the information about how credits are performing, whether they are performing the way that they're expected to, and to understand whether that data is credible, efficient, and trustworthy. There are a lot of benefits to a data package kind of across the board. One is a really good data package can help mitigate the publicity risk or counter charges or kind of push back against the allegations of greenwashing and kind of other criticisms of the voluntary market, because it helps buyers it helps buyers build confidence that the credits they're purchasing are delivering the climate impact that both the buyers are promised and the projects are designed to deliver. A data package is kind of the operational, technical operational level of a lot of the high integrity principles that the ICVCM that kind of are the ICVCM or VCMI or other kind of leading organizations have put out in terms of setting a bar for quality. And then finally, it can really help buyers derive a science and data-backed storyline about carbon credit purchases. We know through our research that kind of the story of carbon credits is a lot of the appeal. And increasingly, there's demand for stories that are really like grounded in really tangible on the ground and verified impacts. And so a data package is really what allows buyers to get there. The data package exists within it's created based off the information that the market as a whole provides. And so it is influenced by a range of forces, including kind of evolving climate science, evolving public guidance, the quality and the sophistication of MRV processes within projects, and then the capability and the capacity of technology to gather good data and to help it move through the system. And then again, because the data package is based on the information that's available through the market, there are 4 types of market actors who are providing the information that buyers need to look for. So those 4 are the registry linked actors, kind of the trading or transaction actors, service providers, and then the public guidance space. And our guide has a lot more detail about all 4 of those, but the the next set of slides, we're going to dive deep into like how to actually build a data package and then how to test it. So next slide. So step one of this guide is building a data package. Next slide. Interesting. So kind of just really want to reiterate on this, that the data package is what allows buyers to understand how credits are performing. Next slide. As I mentioned, the market system provides a lot of different channels for information. And overall, there's kind of three main options that buyers have for finding the information that will go into a data package. So the first option is within the registry system. And we consider this kind of the foundational information that buyers would need. So this includes information that's in the project development document, the business plan, the methodologies, the validation and verification reports, the monitoring plan, and a summary of stakeholder comments. This is the beginning point of a data package. It should help buyers get a picture of what the credits are designed to do and how the MRV has been performing if the credits are at that stage. If the foundational information is somehow lacking or has gaps in it, buyers can always follow up with project developers or other project participants to kind of get clarity or to drill into any issues any concerns they had based off what was in the registry database. This can include questions around the structure of land tenure ownership or stakeholder engagement. It can include questions around kind of the planned MRV processes, the use of digital technologies, how projects are designed to manage good information. And it's really meant to kind of build the buyer's confidence in what they're learning from the registry databases. The final option is to kind of contract with private third parties. There are a ton of third-party service providers or market intermediaries in the VCM that are really working to close gaps on data quality and related information. And so this is a good option for kind of complementing or supplementing any information that is either missing or ambiguous from the first two routes. And so the guide goes into more detail about when that's relevant, but once all that information is collected, the next step for a buyer is to test a data package. And as I mentioned throughout, next slide. There are kind of three criteria that we've identified through our research that really point to whether carbon crediting data is of high quality. And so the guide lays out three tools, one for each indicator, that helps buyers understand whether the data they've collected is is at the performance level that they need it to be. And so the first test is about data credibility, and data credibility just refers to whether the information in the data package is reliably capturing the climate impact of the credits. The second test is about data efficiency, and this refers to how easily it is for the information from a carbon crediting package to be kind of shared with other stakeholders in the market or analyzed by other participants. And then the third test is about project governance. And this, as I mentioned at the beginning, this really looks at whether the project's operations, the MRV system, the kind of governing structures they have in place are capable or are designed to kind of independently verify and securely manage the data that's emerging from the project as it unfolds. And so we'll dive into each one of these tools in a little more detail. Next slide. So the data credibility test, as I mentioned, this really gets to whether the information in the data package is accurately reflecting the climate impact of the credit. And this looks so on the credibility test, you're looking for 3 different indicators. You're looking for whether the data is precise. So it's getting you granular, accurate, complete, and relevant information about the project performance. Whether the data is reliable, meaning that it is verifiable over time, it is consistent and available. And finally, you're looking for whether the data is scientifically valid, meaning that it is collected in accordance with kind of the best scientific processes. It accounts for uncertainty, and it discloses any assumptions or biases that were made in either measuring the impact or modeling the impact of the credits. With all cases, as I mentioned at the beginning, the process that generally happens for collecting this information is to first start with the registry system and then complement any information from the registry system through either direct outreach to project developers or engaging service providers. The next tool we'll talk about is the data efficiency test. And this test, again, looks at how quickly data can be moved through the system, managed, and analyzed. And this is really important because it helps overall lower transaction costs, and then it helps reduce the uncertainty around the climate performance of credits. For data efficiency, there are 4 really kind of big performance indicators that buyers tend to look for. The first is whether the project is using technologies or other processes to make it easy to efficiently manage data. So what we mean by that is that this is where kind of you would want to see digital satellite or Web3 technologies that are being deployed in project design, operation, particularly for MRV purposes. And that these investments are done in a way that reinforce the ability of data to be efficiently managed and analyzed. The other 3 metrics are about usability, timeliness, and shareability. And there are kind of different ways that this shows up, but it all comes back to this principle of, can the information that is being collected, can that information be shared with other actors? Can it be verified quickly, and can it be analyzed to understand how the credit, again, is actually performing? The final test is about project governance. And this is a set of screening criteria that get into the project operations and help ensure that the project operations are designed to independently collect information, manage it, and then disclose it to market participants. Generally, well-governed projects and well-governed data have strong governing processes around MRV. They have processes to ensure that the data remains independent. And this can mean free of conflicts of interest or efforts to minimize bias. Well-governed projects tend to have good dispute resolution processes, and they tend to be transparent about how their data is collected, managed, and who has looked at it. Next slide. Since each test looks at a different angle of the data package and the quality of the data within a carbon credit, it's really important to kind of think about them as needing to be independently applied and then analyzed together. And so what we mean by that is that any data package should all data packages should be tested for the credibility, efficiency, and governance of the information in question. But in assessing whether the overall project has high quality data, you want to look at the collective performance of these 3 tests. So in a perfect world, a project would kind of pass with flying colors on all three tests, and that would indicate that this is a project with almost iron, like with very, very, very high quality data that is worthy of high trust and high value, and is very likely to deliver the climate impact it's promised. And then the flip side would be a project that really struggles across all three tests, and that would indicate that it is a much riskier project in terms of either the climate performance or the ability to deliver on the ground. And then in a case where the kind of, maybe one test comes back really well, but the others are a little murkier, we really encourage buyers. That becomes a kind of question of the risk tolerance of the buyers, and then the ability of buyers to engage with the market to close any data gaps that they're finding in those tests. And sometimes sometimes that can be sorted through subsequent conversations. Sometimes that's where service providers come into the picture. But overall, this is really a way to get a holistic view of the quality of the data that is within a carbon credit, and that using that data to help understand how well the credits are performing over time. Next slide. And so I mentioned, carbon credits have a long lifetime. And so over time, the data landscape will continue to evolve. And so it is important, we just want to acknowledge that it is important for buyers to remain vigilant and thoughtful about how the data landscape evolves and what tools and technologies can be available for them. Next slide. And kind of across the board, there are like 4 big trends that we kind of have identified as really being instrumental in shaping the quality of data and the efficiency with which it's coming through the market. And so these, the guide lays these out as a way to kind of help buyers think through what to look for over time in understanding how to find high quality data and how to continue to incorporate and remain updated on the best innovations that the market is providing. And so these 4 are kind of the science and research space. And so this is a whole different bucket in itself, but a recognition that the kind of climate guidance space is rapidly evolving, and that the VCM is not immune from those developments. The second is the public guidance space. So we know ICVCM and VCMI have really kind of taken a leadership role in setting guidance and accountability on how credits, what should be considered high quality credits and how they can be used. We're also all increasingly aware that governments are beginning to kind of look at the VCM and engage as needed. And that will likely continue over time. I think most excitingly for the voluntary carbon market and most critical has been the application of digital satellite and Web3 technologies to the carbon crediting space, particularly with around the monitoring, reporting, and verification processes. And that innovation and kind of the capability that those technologies provide will continue to evolve and continue to grow. And so we really strongly encourage anybody who's considering buying credits to really be mindful of the role of digital tech in delivering high quality data and high quality credits. And then finally, MRV is absolutely instrumental to understanding and identifying really high value, high quality carbon credits. And kind of the 3 themes above really all feed into what is expected and what is possible out of really good MRV processes. And we expect these to continue to evolve as well over time. Last slide. So this is a lot. I realize it's very technical, it's very complicated. And we've been saying throughout that it's really kind of all things that buyers can use, which is 100% true. But we also are very aware that most of the market is trying to understand buyers or trying to interact with buyers. And so this framework, next slide, is really designed to be actionable for the range of market performers who are interacting with carbon crediting data and who are engaging with buyers on a regular basis. Again, so much of carbon crediting data is about managing risks for buyers, and the high quality data can lead to lower risks in buyers. And so this looks kind of different for different market intermediaries. For example, verifiers and validators, the kind of people who are in the middle, who are the ones looking at, who are assessing whether a project meets kind of certain methodologies or is actually performing the way expected. That to some degree, they kind of already do this, is just they don't call it a data package. And they have a lot of direct touch points with project developers, and are really kind of instrumental in identifying both how to spot risks or gaps in data quality, or how to improve the quality of data. And this can have a direct effect on the climate performance risk of carbon credits and then the implementation risk of carbon credits. The kind of climate technology space is full of startups and service providers and a range of really inspiring companies who are kind of seeing an opportunity and really trying to lean in and build a quality market. And we actually talked to quite a few of them through our partners within RMI. And one thing we encourage them over and over again is to kind of use this information and use this language to articulate how their services are providing value to the market, or how their projects are designed in a way that is of higher value or higher quality than others in the space. And again, these help mitigate the climate performance and implementation risks. Rating agencies, of which there are quite a few right now in the VCM, are kind of similarly are taking a similar approach, and using all the information they can find to kind of assess the performance and the quality of a project. Brokers who are very instrumental right now in kind of collecting or connecting buyers with project developers and helping to source credits. We know some brokers have their own processes for kind of managing and understanding the data quality within carbon crediting projects. But this is the testing tools in particular, I think, can be a helpful guide in understanding what information to look for and how to think about the quality of that information. And then kind of finally, the outer ring of market participants, the financial advisors, the lawyers, and the policymakers, all have kind of a different, they have a different angle into this relationship between data quality and credit risk. But they also, I think, can use the data quality lens and the testing tools to help either price the risks that they're seeing in the market or mitigate them, ideally, as they roll out kind of new services, contracts, and policies. And so I know that was a lot. And so I will kind of that's the end of my presentation. We'll kind of take a step back, let you all exhale a little bit, as Bonnie kind of introduces our panelists.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Caitlin, for walking us through this guide. We're going to transition over now to the live Q&A portion. And so a reminder that you could use that Q&A function at the bottom of your Zoom screen to submit any of the questions that you have. And so while you take a moment to think about questions, digest the information, I'll introduce up the panelists for our Q&A. So first off, I'm really excited to have Anna Lerner-Nesbitt with us, the CEO of Climate Collective, which is a leading innovation network putting digital technologies to work for climate and nature at scale. Welcome, Anna.
Thank you, Bonnie. Excited to be here.
Awesome. I'm also really happy to invite Apurva Sahay, a senior associate of RMI's Carbon Markets Initiative, who is also a key author of this guide. Hi there, Apurva.
Hey, Bonnie. Happy to be here.
Awesome and perfect. And finally, we will still have Caitlin with us. So welcome back again, Caitlin. You're back on deck.
Thank you, Bonnie.
Perfect. Awesome. So again, get to typing if you have any questions. We already have a couple that have been submitted throughout the presentation. So we'll get started and kick off with those. In the meantime, if any other questions come to mind, feel free to continue to submit them through the box. So first off, first question we received, how did you develop these 3 tests and identify these key criteria as the data standard to drive alignment?
I'm happy to take that one. The key criteria that we designed in this guide that Caitlin's just walked you through, it was to balance this key idea in carbon markets. And that idea is, how do you balance standardizing things versus keeping things differentiated enough? And, we believe that any venture in carbon markets needs to strike a balance between these two ideas. And that's because, when you think of carbon credits, they're more like diamonds, not gold. So with diamond, you have these differentiated attributes that allow you to sort of make different choices, on quality. The prices vary based on cut, color, clarity. But then when you think of gold, that's a rather sort of standardized commodity, right? Gold is gold is gold. It's fungible. It's easily tradable. But in carbon markets, like I said, carbon credits are a very differentiated commodity, and they have diverse attributes that need to be maintained. So to identify the key criteria for what that you saw on this guide, we started at the very top and we asked ourselves the questions. What do we know about data? What do we know about what makes good data? What are the principles around good data? And what needs to be true regardless of the kind of carbon project from which that data is arising? And so that was this guiding principle that we used to define the 3 quality benchmarks that Caitlin walked you through, and all of the corresponding performance indicators that are actually pretty widely accepted as yardsticks of data quality in research, in science, in statistics. So we kind of did that broad research. We made sure that it's aligned across these industries and fields. Everyone has a common understanding of what these benchmarks mean. And that's kind of the process that went into defining the standards that you've seen here. And just the value to any buyer or to any user of this is that no matter what project you're going for, these 3 quality benchmarks, data performance indicators, are broadly applicable to your efforts as you do the due diligence around the data attached to those projects. Thanks.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Apurva. Another question we had come in, from a practical perspective, applying the recommendations from this guide can seem to be quite time and resource intensive. So what would you recommend for an organization that has limited resources?
It's a really good question. I might jump in, but circling a little bit, but I'll get to this question. So, carbon markets have had a bit of a rough time recently, as I'm sure you're all aware. And this has happened in parallel with a big effort from a number of really credible entities and players around strengthening integrity of the market. So really strengthening, buyer and seller side integrity. You have the ICVCM, the BCMI that are all working to strengthen integrity. I'm getting visitors here, so I'm a little distracted. Sorry about that. So do you want to say hi? There you go. Hi. Okay. Novelty is over. So we last year together with RMI, we sat down and we said, okay, all of this process integrity is super important, and we're really happy that it's happening, but just adding new layers of process improvement or methodology improvement might not be enough. Sorry, 1 second. Calling for help. Let's see if it works. So while process integrity is really important, you need to focus on data integrity. So data integrity for us is kind of like that underlying the nitty gritty, the dirty details of the carbon credits. And even if we add a new kind of principle for improvement or whatnot, if it's based on the same data, if we know the same thing we know from the underlying asset, it's not really going to improve things. So coming to that conclusion in our last report, and I think it'll be linked in the comments, we then said, okay, like now we pose this paradigm to the market where we said, hey, there are two big things. One is being worked on. One is sort of not really being fixed. Should we just leave it at that? No, we need to sit down again and, you know, led by the incredible RMI team, spent months and months trying to figure out what does buyers need? What is kind of enough? So this goes back to your question, which is a really good one. Like everyone doesn't have a team, like all corporate buyers don't have a team in-house that can build these data packages, do all this due diligence, do all these testing. We understand that, obviously. But I think as a collective, our idea was, if we put this if we raise the bar on awareness and understanding about data quality across the market, then we believe that together with this sort of new light on the market and increased scrutiny and transparency around the market, we will sort out some of the less good quality credits and really provide space for the really high integrity, solid, trusted, credible players. Now we're also putting power back in the hands of the buyer. You don't have to have all this uncertainty and kind of like perceived risk against around operating on this market, because now you have some tools that you can use. Everyone might not use all of these tools. There are 3 really big steps. Maybe you use some of it. Maybe just understanding the language of these tests will be enough to empower you in a conversation with the project developer. So the project developers are like, oh, well, this customer is actually asking the real questions. Let me get them the best product in front of them to make sure that they close the deal. So even if you don't have an in-house team that can do all of this incredible tools and techniques that Caitlin and Apurva have walked you through, there's a lot of just understanding and awareness raising and kind of terminology that I think is helpful for everyone to just feel more confident and sort of feel less concerned about the risks that are surrounding this market.
Fantastic. Thank you, Anna. Here's another question. Availability of data is the largest issue I encounter as a buyer. If a developer is unwilling to provide me with data, such as financial data, is that an indicator of a low quality project?
So one thing the version we presented is like the 20th iteration of the vision that we set out with. And one of the thought experiments we did kind of early in our research was around how could we provide really tangible ways to answer those types of questions. And what we concluded is that the risk tolerance of any buyer is subjective to some degree. And the information that can be provided in the market to mitigate those risks is complicated to some degree, dependent on a lot of different factors. And so I think at least what I would say is that it really depends on the overall context in which specific information is not coming forward, and what you as the buyer hold true as where your risk tolerance is and what information helps you feel better and not better about the kind of uncertainty that is inherent in a transaction. So I think we're really, that's what I would say, but generally the transparent, we've kind of learned through our research and the interviews and kind of the other kind of investigations that we've done, that the more transparency tends to lead to higher quality data and lower risk decisions.
Thanks, Caitlin. I think a good point to recognize that, yep, different buyers really could have different degrees of risk tolerance or things that they are optimizing for. And so that is for the individual buyers to ascertain and decide what they want to be able to take on in a purchase. Great. I'm going to combine two interrelated questions here into one, both of them related to registries. So until quite recently, registries have decided the carbon credit integrity of a project through their verification bodies. To what extent can registries be relied upon to verify quality amongst these three categories? To what extent should buyers be fact-checking that information themselves? And going forward, do you foresee the role of integrity standard setters like ICVCM and VCMI shifting who you should be trusting and listening to?
I can jump in here. I think, our position is that the existing validators and verifiers that are attached to registry systems are terrific at what they do. They've been doing it for years. I think, of course, one aspect is just having the right kind of training to know how to assess a carbon credit, the data and its quality. But, we have immense faith in the existing registry system and the validators and verifiers, a lot of whom we've spoken to and have the right kind of expertise to assess. I think the way that I think about it is that in our regular lives, we use the process of triangulation and corroboration of information as a pathway to make decisions, right? And so I would say it's not about you can't trust one entity over another, but it's sort of, trusting that registry system, doing perhaps if you have the resources and capability, doing your own kind of due diligence as another source of truth, another fact-checking verification point for yourself, and then using, if again you have the resources and capabilities, all of the experts and guidance and counsel available in the form of what ICVCM or VCMI is suggesting your verification process look like. So I think that would be sort of the same way that we make decisions in our personal lives, where a lot of triangulation and corroboration is required in order to make the most effective or impactful or powerful decision. I think the same applies to how you approach the verification process for the kinds of credits that you're interested in purchasing.
I think also, just adding on that, I mean, I agree very much with you, Apurva. I think it's, but also like all verifiers and registers are not the same. Like we didn't want to write a tool or a guide that said, here is what a high quality credit means. Everyone comes to this market from a different perspective and have different motivations for why you're here, different reasons of how you tend, like different objectives and how you intend to use the assets as well. Some buy a lot of them, want to keep them for the future. Others want to compensate one-on-one right now. Those are all okay use cases, but it kind of means that you come at it from a different perspective. I started in the voluntary carbon market in 2007, working on energy efficient cook stove projects. I love cook stove projects. I think they're super important. I've seen them firsthand, but not everyone does. That's fine. I'm not going to write a guide to tell you to just buy them, although you should really buy cook stove projects. But that said, this is more of like a behind the scenes. This allows you to keep your own priorities. My company cares about X, and for that reason, we're looking for Y and C and H. Great. Here is a neutral tool that allows you to kind of assess the data, the behind-lying data quality of that product that you're looking for. It allows you to also say, based on what I like, it seems like this registry has the best quality data for this type of product. That's great. Don't assume that it's all the same. Like all registers are not the same. All the verifiers are not the same. This is a kind of empowering the buyer to take ownership of your role and your responsibility in this market. And I think that's really cool. I will also say, and as Bonnie mentioned before, I represent the Climate Collective. It's this coalition of climate and nature tech startups that are building products and solutions around across the voluntary carbon markets to biodiversity markets, carbon accounting, green accountability across the board. Many of them were like, but is this going to undermine my ability to sell a really high quality credit which cost a bit more because we've verified all the data, we've done all the hard due diligence. I'm like, no, it's not undermine your ability to come with a premium product to the market. It strengthens your ability and your claim for a premium price. This helps a buyer understand that if a product is offered that has a premium price because of its quality, its due diligence, its transparency, then that deserves a higher price. And here's sort of the reasoning. And here's a way for the buyer to also assess that on their own, so they don't just have to kind of rely on the salesperson. So from my perspective, and Caitlin actually put it really well in the last slide, this guide, I think, can help all the players across the market to just like level up their game and be a lot more transparent, have a lot more quality on their data. And my last plug will, be for digital tech. But today we have digital technologies that allows us to generate super granular, almost real-time, high quality data. When I did energy efficient cook stove projects in 2007, we had none of that. It was guesstimations and like back of the envelope calculations, and we made do with what we could. But today there's so much incredible data that recent vintage of carbon credits are flush with data, and that's an incredible thing. So we should all make use of that and not pretend that just because an old project a long time ago doesn't have the same quality data and maybe isn't as high integrity or deliver the same kind of impact, it doesn't mean that products generated today or last year are facing the same issues. So we really want to put this back on you in the market. This is empowering the market to go and kind of become all that it needs to become.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Anna. And as we're wrapping closer to the end of our webinar today, I would love to pose this question to all three of our panelists. What is the one thing that you would want the audience to take away from today's webinar?
Yeah, great question, Bonnie, and really thoughtful question, kind of conversation in the last 20 minutes. So one thing that comes back to me over and over again is that this guide, as Anna mentioned, is really designed to be empowering kind of both buyers and other stakeholders in the market to either improve their language around data quality, or to just become kind of more confident navigators of a pretty complicated space. And ultimately, the vision, I think, that collectively we see for the carbon market is one where the market is really able to hold a lot of differentiated credits at different price points. And that the kind of line between really high quality, high premium credits and maybe more practical high volume credits is really about kind of the data density behind those credits. And this guide is really kind of trying to empower people to think about how do you know that the credits are really doing what and delivering the climate performance that we all need them to, and how do you value that data? Because it's not cheap, it's not easy, it's very complicated, but it is also kind of the unlock that we all see as really helping the market get to its next iteration of kind of delivering high climate impact.
That was awesome. I mean, from my perspective, I would just say that everyone that operates across carbon markets need more Caitlin Smith in their life. I'm like blown away by the amount I learn every time I interact with Caitlin, and I've been in this market for a very long time. So aside from that, no, but I think there is perceived risk. It's a challenging market, but it's the tool, it's the market mechanism that we have today. It's not perfect, but we have it. It's real. And beyond doing decarbonization really fast and a lot faster than is what's happening, we need to use carbon markets. We're also seeing the carbon markets, companies that are operating on carbon markets are decarbonizing even faster than the ones that are not even bothering about engaging with carbon markets. So it's a super important tool. And if you take away one thing from this, it's that we got your back. There are a lot of good people out there who have resources and tools and ways to help any corporate sustainability person that is interested in engaging more on carbon markets. Come to us. We're happy to guide you more, give you recommendations, walk you through the guide, give your team a presentation of the guide, whatever is needed. We just really want to help this market become all it can and increase the financial flows that go to these super important projects.
Yeah, I think one sort of, there are so many things that we have learned in our journey of developing this guide, interacting with buyers, kind of really having that empathetic perspective of like, we truly get that parts of navigating this market are daunting and overwhelming. But if you're a buyer, I think the most practical sort of advice I have is know what you're looking for. And just for perspective, there are over 15,000 active carbon credit projects in the world. And those represent this wide range of, whether it's methodologies, accounting mechanisms, reporting practices, quality. So, from a buyer's perspective, this is daunting and overwhelming. And it's not that you need to know all the technical specifications of, a project, but the quicker you lean into that sort of learner mindset, the data learning journey, the higher your likelihood of being able to tackle risks early on, and better your ability to tell stories about the credits that you're interested in purchasing. And that comes from this like understanding that typically buyers, they enter the market with two perspectives. You're either risk averse or you're narratives driven. And so, risk is, I need to know what this credit is doing. Is it going to do what it's doing? Narrative driven, you're interested in the storytelling potential of your purchase, right? So whether that's a narrative around the co-benefits or about the impact on, new income streams for women and IPLCs and local communities, whether it's ecosystem services. So just figure out in your learning journey, like what your perspective is, right? In this risk narrative matrix. And that's sort of this, that opens up the space for you to like really embark on that journey. And I mean, I don't expect everyone to be nerdy about data. I know I am not for the most part, but it's been really exciting, illuminating to lift that hood and uncover what's beneath. And it's like, for anyone who's been terrified of math, like growing up, it's kind of just like the more you sit with it, practice, know the equations, know the basics, it's less daunting and, dare I say, fun sometimes. So it's kind of a similar journey with knowing carbon crediting data. And so just kind of know what you're looking for and lean into the awareness building journey.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Anna, Apurva, Caitlin, for sharing some of your insights and thoughts with us during this Q&A portion. Thank you to everyone in the audience for joining us today for this run-through and discussion of the Buyer's Guide. We really do see buyers as serving such an important role in the decisions that you make and how your purchases could actually lead to a more trusted VCM. So we hope that this guide could help present some of these tools and frameworks that could be helpful for you on your journey, and we look forward to continuing to stay connected as well. We have been recording this session, and this recording will be posted on the RMI event page within the next 24 hours. So you could always refer back to any of our discussion today and also be able to share this recording out with your network. We would really appreciate your help to get this guide into more hands and for us to continue to work on this through the rest of the journey. So thank you so much again to everyone and have a great rest of your day.